Welcome to Make More Money. In this show, we're talking with business leaders who have woven or are weaving character-based capitalism in their corporate culture and value proposition to create a distinctive competitive advantage. Character-based capitalism is not just about making more money. It's actually about building trust between consumers and suppliers and doing what's right for all stakeholders, which then deepens relationships that build business sustainability. Today's topic is implementing an objective selection process. Our guest today is Chef Joe D'Alessandro, the president of Strategic Hospitality Search. Great to have you with us, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Okay. Now, in his firm, he provides expert talent acquisition and organizational development consulting services for small to mid-sized enterprises, and they strive to transform excellence-driven companies that deliver a high degree of service in food and beverage verticals such as restaurants, hotels, manufacturers, and distributors. Prior to founding SHS in 2002, Chef Joe had spent 15 years in leadership positions in hospitality operations before becoming a full-time executive recruiter in 2000. SHS has also grown from being a one-man shop now to being a full-service team. In addition to SHS, Chef Joe co-founded a private label manufacturing company, became the career services director for an elite culinary school, and also made significant contributions to his community through nonprofit ministry and trade organizations. In addition to his culinary training, Chef Joe also studied economics at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So again, Joe, it's great to have you here. Would you just share with us, please, a little bit about your business and how you got to where you are?
Sure. All right. Fantastic. Well, a lot of grit, and a lot of hard work and dedication. I'd made a change from operations into executive search in 2000, and then launched the agency in my basement in 2002, like a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs, and just grew along the way. But of course, going from a practitioner to a business owner and president of an agency is a big learning curve. So a lot of learning along the way, and study. And a lot of great people that are now in the agency. The agency is a great deal more than me. And I rely on them every day to carry on our vision and our culture.
And I think we should also put a disclaimer here also that we've been working with you over the past several years in terms of helping you build your company to where it is today as well.
Sure.
And so that's been a great relationship along the way. So, Joe, you've seen a lot in all these different companies and industries that you serve. So what are some of the common mistakes that you've found?
Well, especially when you're talking about growth companies, right? And CEOs and founders who are doing the hiring. One of the biggest mistakes that we find is that CEOs and executives are so busy and they're wearing so many hats and doing so many things that they're going from looking at a new space to working with the innovation team to marketing and sales and everything else. And so they say, Mr. So-and-so, Ms. So-and-so, your interview's here. And maybe they've got some questions prepared. They ask a question, and then they spend the next 60 minutes getting so fired up about what their company's doing. And then they transfer that. They transfer that excitement to the candidate who just came in, and then they say, gosh, Sally's great. We've got to bring her back. And then the rumor gets around that the boss really likes Sally. So the subsequent interviewers have a bias, and the candidate slides in and might be completely under-equipped for the position.
So it's kind of like the Pygmalion effect.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Or the prophecy, the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. So I mean that's one of the ways. Another that's very that happens a great deal is post and pick. Okay, well, we need to fill this position. Let's post it on a bunch of websites, and we'll see who comes in, and we'll hire the best person that came in from the posting. But those are active market candidates, and oftentimes companies will lower the bar because you're looking out to see who's applying when you're really missing the best candidates who are in the passive market, and that's really the business that we're in, is making sure that we're finding buried treasure for our clients. Another big one is hiring for skills and not for culture fit. So hiring somebody who's got this great skill set and they've got great references, but you drop them into the culture and they are cancerous, they cause all kinds of problems, and then 2 or 3 people that you have hired, trained, and developed are like, you know what, I don't want to work with Ray anymore. So they wind up leaving. So you have to have a holistic approach to the hiring process.
So essentially what you're saying here, Joe, if you hire the wrong person, just one wrong person, that can create the caustic environment, which can cause several people to leave, which then makes it even more difficult to get really good talent in the organization. So although the leader may be well-meaning in this process, they jump the gun, they shoot from the hip, they don't have a design or structure that then really can be detrimental to the organization in the long term.
For sure. And it's interesting that so often leaders shoot themselves in the foot in this area, because most of them became successful by creating a repeatable process. That's what a CEO does. That's what a founder does, right? We can't just do it once. We've got to do it a million times.
Right.
So they're process-driven people, but they really lose it in this area of hiring.
So then now we're talking about creating this objective hiring process. Okay. So why is this process important, and what are some key practices that leaders should be putting into place in order to ensure that they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot?
Okay. Well, not everybody likes to hear the word accountability, but accountability is so important to everybody in their life, and especially in business. The pressure's really on. I mean, if I work for a company and they say, Joe, you're in charge of hiring the next director of marketing, and that pressure falls on my shoulder, and I'm going to own that solely. Really, studies show I'm going to have about a 30% probability of making the right hire. And then, if I make the wrong hire, then what's going on at the water cooler? What's wrong with Joe? He hired the wrong person. So it's all kinds of discord that can happen as a result of that. And again, putting in a repeatable process, ideally, where you don't just have superiors and human resources people, but you've got superiors, peers, and subordinates that are also interviewing. And I know we're going to talk about the interweaving of values and culture, but there has to be at least one person on the team that is a bona fide culture, torchbearer.
Well, it's interesting you just mentioned that, because now when we think about objective processes, invariably we're thinking about left brain. Okay, there's a structure to it. It's analytical. Boom, 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 boom. You follow the process. But this is more than that, because you and I have talked before. And we just spoke with Joe Zuba about whole brain leadership. Okay, and the fact that this is more than just filling a job. It's, as you mentioned, it's the culture fit. So let's talk about that from the perspective of hiring the right person. From your perspective and what you've learned, where does that begin?
Okay, so it's really quite simple, and it does take an investment of time and resources, there's no question about it, but it's really a three-step process, all right? Step one is you've got to build a hiring team, and it's a superior, a peer, and a subordinate. We see it work well with a team of three, and this group has to be committed. They have to be committed to doing a good amount of pre-work prior to launching the process, and also to have some wiggle room in their schedule to accommodate for the interviews and debriefs that come along the way. The second is the process itself. So the pre-work is designing the job. Now, naturally, as your company grows and you have a human resources element, it's got to be done in conjunction with that. But you'd be surprised how many times you go over a job description, and when you have a superior, a peer, and maybe that person's subordinate, and they say, you know what, we're going to hire for this position, and they're going to write all the code for this part of the website. And then somebody goes, well, I write the code for that part of the website. Oh, well, they're going to meet with all the clients who come in, and then no, I sit next to Jane, and Jane does that. So this, right off the bat, I mean, how many times are you work in a company, and somebody gets hired, and then day two, they're like, we're not sure what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So you can eliminate a great deal of that, and this team will refine what are the knowledge, skills, attributes, education and experience that are required for the position.
Well, now this goes right back to, as you mentioned earlier, a very holistic approach to hiring. And rather than being a transaction, which is just given to HR and goes to the hiring manager, so here's the job order, right? As we've known how that has gone in the past. If this person has the qualifications, great. If they don't have the qualifications, well, goodbye.
Right.
When in fact, this is a lot more than that.
Right.
Because now, as you said, talk about the team, okay? Having those different perspectives, you're now looking almost like a 360, and how that then plays into job performance.
Right. And this is so now we're in step three, right? We've created the team,
Right.
We've created the process, And really what needs to be done here, I mean, there's always going to be some subjectivity in hiring. There's no question about it.
Right.
But you want to try to make it as objective as you possibly can. So what the team does is creates a scorecard. You put objectivity to it. So you take the job description that you've created, and then you run that through the filter of the company's culture and values, and you create specific questions to elicit responses from the candidate to discern, do they have the skills, do they have the values, are they going to fit the culture? So for example, let's say you wanted to screen for critical thinking. All right, so you might ask the question, what was the biggest problem you've had to solve in the last 6 months, and how'd you solve it, and what were the results? And a good way to measure somebody's response, and it's really easy to learn for anybody, it doesn't matter if you work in the IT department or marketing or in administration, but it's the acronym STAR. Right. You see if the candidate is answering, giving you the situation, telling you what tasks that they endured in order to address the situation, the actions that they took, and then the results. Because if you're not getting the results, then we can't measure whether somebody's right or wrong. And in our agency, when we do this, we assign 1 point for S, 1 point for T, 1 point for A, 1 point for R. Okay. And literally we interview sometimes in a panel and sometimes individually, and then we tote them up, and then we come back and we debrief.
Well, and again, this goes right back to if you have 3 different interviewers, or if you have a panel, they're going to have different perspectives, and they're going to be listening or hearing different things. But then it's the power, it's the synergy again of all those perspectives coming together to say, and 2 might say, well, this is a good fit, but this other person may say, well, wait a minute, this came up in the discussion that I'm not so sure.
Right. So that's that kind of leads into the discussion of values, and I think a lot of people look at values as something you put on a plaque, you put on the wall, but there are really several different types of values, and if you assimilate them into this process, it'll really help. So kind of look at three types of values. Okay. So one set is kind of permission to play. This is kind of the kindergarten of values. If part of the process is to take a candidate for dinner, you take the candidate for dinner, and you say, gosh, it's April 15th, tax day. Did you get your taxes done? And they say, taxes? I haven't paid taxes in 10 years. All right? We're going to have a quick dinner and we're going to get out of here. Or you check the references and they're like, you know what, Ray's a great guy. We love him, but the guy was late every day. And if punctuality is really important to your company, then you know what, we might have to just limit it.
So this goes right about, though, Joe, we've talked before about character, is the values that we put into action. And so what you're really talking about here, and this is where character-based capitalism comes into play. You want to make sure you have the people of the right character inside your organization. But it's also, what are they doing that other people are watching that demonstrate their true character?
That's right.
You can't hide it, right? Because if you turn enough stones over, you're going to find either the dirt or the virtue. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So you got permission to play. Then you've got your aspirational values. Some companies have these, like we are committed to the truth in every single thing we do. In life on planet Earth, it's hard. It's hard sometimes not to fudge things a little bit or tell a little bit of a white lie. But as a company and a culture, if it's something that you're constantly talking about and training about and developing and reinforcing, and you're writing it on on your heart and it's kind of spreading, if you shoot for that, you're going to tell the truth a lot more than your competitors do. And you can elicit that from a candidate to see if maybe that's something that they aspire to. And then the third type are your core values, and these are the values that distinguish the behavior in your company. At SHS, our acronym is CFIRE: caring, faith, initiative, responsibility, and ethical practice. And a lot of our interview process is designed to elicit whether folks already have these values, because you can train on skills, but you can't train on behavior. And somebody that's going to go to work for your company, if they already have these values before they come in, they're going to be a great asset in the long run.
So again, you're applying the 3 C's of character, commitment, and competence in that order, rather than the other way that a lot of companies hire in terms of technical competence first, then we'll see about the character and commitment later, right?
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's what's most important.
And so then what you're talking about here, let's talk about sustainability then. when you look at the success of your placements compared to others, what's the sustainability there?
We have a higher sustainability rate for sure because in our screening process, we screen for these attributes in addition to the knowledge and the skills for the job, and we take a long time. Actually, I'm sorry, clients, but we take a long time taking a job order. We really do.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, there's a hotelier or a restaurateur or a very busy vice president of operations. Like, I need an executive sous chef at my steakhouse. It's in Dallas. I want to pay X amount. Go. Whoa, wait a minute. And we need a half hour, 45 minutes. We need to know upside, downside, left to right. What is this person responsible for? To whom do they report?
Okay, so let's just take that scenario for example, because this is what a lot of companies face with. Let's face it, they've got to get this position filled. Yet, if they fill it too quickly with the wrong person, they're going to continue to churn and churn and churn.
That's right.
And that's going to cost them more in the long run.
It's somewhere around $30,000 for a management position between the money you spend on recruiting, even if you don't have a recruiter. Because if you're in operations and you have to stop what you're doing to continue to hire people, you're not developing your staff, you're not loving on your customers, you're not watching the bottom line, you're not seeing if silverware is going in the garbage can, and all kinds of things. Not to mention the gap in service. If you're running a manufacturing line or you're running a hotel, and there's less people that are here to do the job, and now you're overworking your existing staff, which is going to cause you retention problems,
and it creates more tension inside the organization. And people start, and that really then eats away at the culture and actually creates the toxic culture.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's face it. We could go on as we have done in the past. But could you please share with the audience as to how they get in touch with you and the best ways in which to if they want more information and knowledge?
For sure. No, thank you very much. Check out our website. It's www.shs.jobs. Our motto is the craft for curating talent. So that's what our website's all about. And you can look me up on there and shoot me an email or give me a call, 630-837-0400.
Thanks very much, Joe. It's been great having you on the show.
It's great
Thanks
to be
so much
here.
for your insights and your perspectives.
Great.
Thank you. Really helped our audience. And so thank you very much for being here for another edition of Make More Money Through Character-Based Capitalism. We look forward to seeing you the next time.